Welcome to Kevin Dale Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to talk about 10 reasons why your photography business may be failing. I'm pleased to announce that I'm launching 3 Capture One style packs: Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These will eventually also be available for Lightroom, so if you go to kevindealphotography.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and join my mailing list, I promise I won't send you spam, but I will let you know the second these release. And now, on to today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Dale Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So, I've been doing photography for quite a few years, and I've learned some things over the years that have helped me. I've learned some things over the years that have hurt me, and I've seen other photographers also do the same. And let's be completely honest here, a lot of you who shoot photography are very right-brained, artistic people who love to create, and that's an awesome thing. But some of you are like, hey, I want to turn this into a career. And unfortunately, a lot of you suck at business, and you're wondering why you can't make money, a living, doing photography. And so I've seen some things over the years that I want to talk about, and we're just going to dive right into the list right now. And the number one thing I want to start with is people charge too little. And that's a big thing, because if you charge too little, you're going to put yourself into the situation where you could very well hate photography. I'm going to use an example. I see photographers all the time. They go take families out into a field and they take their picture, and then maybe they charge them $100. Okay, and then that family loves your pictures, and then they go tell other families, hey, go work with such and such photographer, but they only charge $100. Isn't that great? Well, the problem with that is you've created the $100 customer. So now you have a network of people who will use you, but they will only pay you $100, or that is the expectation. And if you decide to raise your prices, you can't do it drastically, because let's say you want to become a $1,000 photographer who charges $1,000 to do portrait sessions. How are you going to get people who expect to spend $100 to pay $1,000? And that is the problem, is that people undersell themselves. They undervalue themselves. And I see incredibly talented photographers out there who are probably better than I am, who don't make as much money as I do because they don't value themselves. And if you are the $1,000 photographer, even if it's 10 times harder to find a client who will pay $1,000, you've still broken even with the client who has people who pay $100, but you work 10 times less. Okay, one $1,000 session makes the exact same amount of money as 10 $100 sessions. You did 10 times less work to make the same amount of money. And by the way, the people who will pay you $1,000, they become your bird dogs who go recommend you to other people. And then when other people go, wow, those pictures are awesome, how much did you pay? They'll say, I paid $1,000 for it. And then the person goes, okay, well, that looks like $1,000 work. So when they reach out to you, the expectation is that they're going to spend $1,000 on the session. Now, that is an arbitrary number that I threw out, but I do know people who charge that much. So it is not outside of the realm of possibility. And so that's the point there, is charge a little bit more, because even if people say no, if you're charging 10 times more, you have to have 10 people say no in order for it to come out to the exact same amount of money. However, if you build a network of people who are willing to pay you $1,000, you have to work less to make the exact same amount of money. Or if you're really good at it, you're just going to make more money, because the person who has to do 10 times the amount of work as you to make the same amount of money is way more likely to burn out on photography and quit it altogether. There's literally nothing out there that says I live off my spouse's income. Then that family photographer who charges $25 for mini sessions. You're never going to have a career out of that. This is just a little bit of play money. If you actually want to make a career out of photography, you have to be more serious about making money, and that means charging what you are worth. Which brings me to my next point, which is figuring out what to charge at all. One thing I see photographers do all the time that pisses me off and is really bad for the industry is how they come up with what to charge in the first place. What do? They go online, they size up some photographer in their local area who they think is about as good as they are. They go to their website and they see what they charge and they go, okay, I'm going to undercut that by a few dollars and that's what I'm going to charge. Here's the problem with that. You put absolutely no thought into your worth. You did not plug in the $529 that you need to contribute to every month for your kids' college. You didn't think about your retirement. You plugged absolutely zero numbers into how you arrived at your number. And when you look at that other photographer's number, are you even in the same life situation that they are in? Are they 15, 20 years older than you and they're having to toss more money into retirement than you at that point in time? How did they come up with their number? And the more important question is did they do the exact same thing that you did, which is this never-ending cycle of photographers looking at other photographers' websites to see what they charge and then go, well, I'm going to charge less than that. Maybe they did the same thing. Maybe they're just as terrible at business as you are, and all you're doing is looking at their terrible business numbers that had no thought put into them and plugging that into your situation. That is not how it works. You have to figure out how much you need to make per month, and then you need to divide that by the number of sessions that you do every month, whether you shoot weddings or whether you shoot portraits or whether you sell prints, whatever it is that you do, you have to divide the number of whatever it is you sell by the amount of sessions that you do or prints that you sell to add up to the amount of money you need to live off of. That is how you come up with your numbers. Do not look at what other people charge, because if you do not have the exact same life situation as them, lifestyle, retirement goals, etc., the chances that you are going to charge the exact same amount as them for you to hit your goals is improbable. So do not do that. That doesn't do anything for our industry, and more importantly, it's not going to help you out because chances are you're going to be in that first category where you charge too little. That brings me to my third point, which is fire your customers. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean be a jerk and go around and fire customers, but there are customers out there who are time sucks. There are customers out there who waste your time, who undervalue you. It is okay to walk away from those customers. Now, do it professionally, do it with class, but you have to think about your bottom line, which is I need to make this much money. How do you make that much money? You make that much money by dealing with people who value you. And chances are that customer who doesn't value you is the biggest time suck. They're the person who's the most demanding, because the people who pay those upper prices for you, oftentimes they already see that you're worth it. It's why they're willing to part with that much money in the first place. Oftentimes that customer who wastes the most of your time is also that same customer who makes you do all the retouches. They want a bunch of revisions. They ask for a ton, but they don't want to pay anything for it. That is a gigantic waste of your time. So kick that customer to the curb, but obviously do it with professionalism. That brings me to my next point. If you're a workaholic who works 7 days a week and you do nothing but photography 24/7 for money, you're going to get burned out on it and you're going to quit. It's also a sign that you're not charging enough, because if you are always booked, that means that you charge too little. You should take less jobs that pay more money so you have more free time to live your life. Do you live to work or do you work to live? Do you want to see your kids grow up, or do you just want to see a bride and a groom every day, or some corporate client who's super demanding? I know I don't want to do that 24/7. I want to live my life. Sometimes I want to use my camera for other things, like documenting a vacation, or maybe going to somebody's baptism and shooting that just for fun, not for money. And you don't have that kind of time if you always work. And if you don't have a good work-life balance, this is going to be nothing more than a hobby, because you're going to crash and burn, and nobody wants to do that. The reason you picked up your camera in the first place is because you love taking pictures. And if you put yourself into a life situation where you get burned out, man, I can't think of anything worse than a situation situation where I would never want to touch my camera again. And I've seen countless photographers go through this, and it's really unfortunate. So you do need to construct your business in such a way to where you do have a healthy work and life balance. My next point that I want to talk about is release forms. Now, this is a little bit of an in-the-weeds subject because depending on where you live, your laws may vary. But where I live in the United States, if I take a picture with this camera, I am the author. The only time I am not the author when I take a picture with this camera, I don't own the copyrights, is if I have some sort of a contract in place. Maybe I'm doing a work for hire job for a corporation and I sign over the rights to all my pictures to that corporation. That's really the only situation in which I am no longer the outright owner of these pictures. However, just because you take somebody's picture and you own that picture, that does not mean that you own their likeness. So if you are working with, say, a model, even if money is not exchanging hands, it's a TFP shoot, a trade shoot where you're helping build their portfolio and they're helping build your portfolio, you technically can't even post the pictures of them on Instagram or Facebook or any other social media without their permission. Now, the good news is most people don't know the laws. That includes the models. But if for some reason they don't like the pictures that you took and they ask you to take them down, you legally have to take them down if you do not have a release form. That is how it works, at least in my country. You do need to learn your laws, and I actually have an app called Easy Release that I use, and I keep it on my phone. And every single time I work with a model, they sign the release on every single photo shoot. And why do we do that? Because we now have a legal document that states what everybody's intentions are with the shoot. But it's also important for you as the photographer that a model sign your release, because we hear horror stories all the time about customers who take your pictures and they edit them. And so what I do is I have a human conversation about the legal document they're about to sign. I'm like, hey, I have this release form. Every single client signs it with every single session. And what this contains is you cannot edit the pictures. I won't have the pictures ever end up on any sites that feature pornography, but I do let them know that, hey, I have a YouTube channel, and sometimes the pictures I take of you end up on my YouTube channel when I'm talking about gear, like, hey, I use this 50mm lens. Here's some picture examples. I have that very human conversation with them, and then I go, okay, so the stuff we just talked about, that's in this form, and this is what you're about to sign. Feel free to read the whole thing if you want to, but I've had photographers reach out to me and say, hey, I have this model who's pissed off because I have these pictures up from 3 or 4 years ago and she got married and she was like in a bikini and she doesn't want that bikini picture up anymore. It's like, well, I mean, first and foremost, I would probably take the picture down out of respect for the model because it's like, okay, yeah, I'll take it down. But from a legal standpoint, if you don't have a release, you have to take down the picture. And by the way, that isn't just limited to people. Private buildings, sometimes you need a release form for the building. Like if you go to a really famous private building and you take pictures inside of it and you don't have a release for the building, that could be an issue as well. You have to contact the property owner. You have to get their legal okay to shoot inside that building. It does vary from country to country, the laws, but that is something that you need to keep in mind. Speaking of laws, pretty much every single place in the world charges a tax of some kind if you are a business. So if you're not putting aside your tax rate every single time you sell a job, it's going to come back and bite you when tax time comes around. Additionally, you have to look at how often tax is collected where you live. So, for instance, I live in the state of Texas inside the United States. And if you have a certain income, you have to pay your taxes yearly, your state sales tax. However, if you make above a certain threshold, you have to pay your state sales tax quarterly. And if you do not pay that sales tax quarterly and you wait till the end of the year, they charge you like a $2,000 fine. So if you are going to get serious about running a business, you do need to familiarize yourself with the tax laws where you live. And of course, if you are seriously trying to run your business, if you're not good at running the books, you need to hire a CPA, a certified public accountant, or whatever you call it in your country, because that $300 to $400, even $1,000 you pay that person may very well save you up to $10,000, $20,000, depending on how much you make every year, because they also know things like, oh, you drove a certain amount of miles, you can write off the miles. There's all sorts of things that tax guys know that they can get you around having to pay certain taxes and put more money in your pocket as a company. And speaking of bookkeeping, have a bookkeeping software of some kind if you are seriously trying to run your business, because it's impossible to keep track of everything. And you do need to have some sort of a software out there, some sort of a CRM software out there. I personally use QuickBooks. That's not an endorsement of it because they don't pay me, but that's what I use. I pay like $30 a month, which to me is a drop in the bucket. $30 a month to be organized, to run your company. I think that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. There's obviously other programs out there. Like some people I think use Pixie Set. You can use stuff like NetSuite. You can use stuff like, I guess, Salesforce. I think it's scalable. They have more entry-level versions. But the bottom line, you do need to have some sort of way to manage your clients, see how your sales trends are going, maybe even classify purchases. Another reason why it's good to classify things, maybe you sell prints and you find out that most people are buying 8x10 prints. You can track 8x10 print sales and find that, 8x10 prints are doing like 300% better than the second best print. Maybe I need to start pushing 8x10 prints more. Maybe I need to start charging a couple dollars more just to put a little extra in my pocket because people are willing to pay that price. Maybe they're willing to pay a little bit more. So CRM software allows you to track stuff like that. It keeps you organized. And of course, most of them have some sort of a tax component to them. And of course, you can take that data and export it to your CPA. That last point I told you about paying taxes and knowing your tax laws. Oftentimes, wherever you live, that program knows the tax laws and it automatically plugs that in. So those 2 points actually go very well together, hand in hand. Another point I want to make with business is do not rely on Instagram for all your business. Now, I do know people who all they get their business from is Instagram, and they go, yeah, man, I don't need to worry about anything. I get all my business off Instagram. But I look at it as this gigantic potential pie chart, and it's like, okay, but if you were putting in the efforts maybe to network and maybe to do Google SEO ads where you drive more traffic to your website, how much more money, how much more pie could you get if you tried to advertise or grow your business in all of those areas? Newsflash, certain generations use Instagram and certain generations don't use Instagram. And a lot of the generations who do not use Instagram actually have the most disposable income. So if you want people who pay you a lot of money, oftentimes they go look for websites and they go to Google. And so that's something to keep in mind. Additionally, there is business out there that you probably don't even know exists, and you'll never know it exists unless you actually physically go out there and network people, go to networking events. Sometimes you volunteer. You lend your camera for free for charity, and at those events there's a bunch of other people who network. Maybe you'll run into a real estate agent who needs headshots and they have like 10 agents who need headshots. Those types of opportunities often do not present themselves on social media platforms like Instagram, and so you really do need to think more diversely about how you go out there and advertise your products and services. And if you just put your eggs in one basket, you're now being dictated as to how you're able to market. Instagram exists to make money for Instagram and Meta. That is why they are there. They are there to get people to click on the advertisements and all that. If you're basing your entire business model on Meta's business model, which is to make Meta the most amount of money, I find it improbable that that is the most efficient way for you to make a living as a photographer. Which leads me to my final points today, which is if you are serious about photography, if you're serious about running photography as a business, make a website. There are so many easy website builders you can use and make your own website. They already have the portfolios laid out. All you got to do is drag and drop the pictures. They have bodies for home pages, bodies for about me sections. They have fields and forms for contacts. They have mailing list forms that people can sign up for your mailing list. They even have stores where you can sell your prints. You can use websites like Squarespace, Pixie Set. I use Format. There's so many tools out there. And even if you don't want to build the site, if you pay somebody $1,000, $2,000 to just do a very basic site for you that's going to make you look nice and professional, think about how much money that's going to make you. Remember the point I made about people who don't want to go through Instagram. They want to go through Google search engines to find people, which then funnels traffic to websites. Those people are looking for good websites. And a pro tip on that website is just make sure that the navigation, that nothing is more than 2 clicks away. You want it to be easy for people to know where they are within your site. They want it to be easy to see a contact button so they can contact you. That is absolutely something that you need to do if you are a professional photographer. And for those of you who are like, I don't have a website, yeah, think about how much money you're leaving on the table. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. While I do not consider myself the foremost expert on all things photography business related, I did learn some things over the year and I did want to share them with you in today's episode. If you like what you saw today, tell me about in the comments below. Do you have some pro tips you want to share with the viewers of this video about business and photography? By all means, share those in the comments below. And I humbly ask you, if you like this channel, to click the subscribe button below. And if you like my opinions about photography and videography related subjects, and you want to hear them in their more unfiltered versions, I highly recommend you go check out my other YouTube channel, the F11 Photography Podcast. And for all of you who just want to listen to the podcast, you can listen to it on all major platforms, including Apple and Spotify. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.